Okay, tonight we start reading The Bugalugs Bum Thief by Tim Winton. Skeeter Anderson woke up one summer morning to find that his bum was gone. What? Got a crazy room, doesn't he? What is Skeeter Anderson on about? He lay back on his bed and tried not to get upset. I'm still asleep, he thought. I'm dreaming. But he could hear crows cawing in the tree outside his window. Blah, blah, blah. And he heard boat engines starting up down at the jetty too. So he knew he was awake. He was not happy. Skeeter Anderson knew that his bum was gone because, as any sensible person knows, a missing bum makes a large dent in the back of a person. You feel like a turtle without a shell, a donkey without a tail. There were other clues too. When Skeeter sat on the edge of his bed, he slid straight to the floor. Nothing to sit on. Walking from his bedroom to the kitchen, he lost his pajama pants. There was nothing to hold them up. Mum, he called. Dad, something terrible. He stopped and stared. His mum and dad were eating breakfast on the floor. Morning, Skeet, said his mum. Skeeter's mouth dropped open like a truck door. Ahem, said Skeet's dad, sounding very embarrassed. We seem to have lost our bottoms in the night, finding it hard to sit on our chairs. Useful thing, a bottom, when you think of it. Skeeter's parents went on eating their toast and drinking their tea. Don't be late for school, said Skeeter's mum. Skeeter lived in a small town by the sea. The town was called Bugalugs. No one could remember who was to blame for thinking up such a dumb name for a town, and even if they could remember, no one was going to own up to it, because the people of Bugalugs were a bit proud. They were nice folks, but just a teeny bit vain. Bugalugs was 3 streets wide and was built next to a beautiful bay where fishing boats anchored. Behind the town was a great desert of white dunes. Every morning before the sun came up over the dunes, the fishermen of Bugalugs went out to catch crayfish. They put fresh bait in their traps every day, and little red critters made gutses of themselves. As any sensible people know, a cray will eat anything except football boots, so bait is not hard to find. Every day, crayfish were pulled from the traps, still munching, and were sent all over the world so people could munch on them. That's how it was every day at Bugalugs. Except for today. Skeeter went to the window and saw Billy Marbles trying to ride past on his bike. Billy was sliding all over the place, with his knees hanging over the handlebars, and there was Billy's sister Mavis walking to school with a big dent in the back of her dress. Skeeter ran out into the street holding up his PJs, and right away he saw it. The whole town was the same. No bums. He ran inside and got dressed quickly. With some string he tied his trousers on. Then he ran to his best mate's house. Mick Misery, his best mate, was always getting a hiding. Mick's mum was a real smacker. Smacking was her hobby. She walloped Mick for being early, she whacked him for being late. But this morning she wasn't getting anywhere at all. When Skeeter arrived, Mick's mum was swinging away, but every hit just swished past because Mick Misery was bumless. Mrs. Misery gave up glumly and sent them off to school. Mick whistled like a drunk canary, but Skeeter was worried. Maybe it's the ozone layer, he thought. Or perhaps we're under attack from aliens. But there had to be an easier answer. It was an awful day at school. With nothing to sit on or hold their pants up with, the kids at Bugalugs Primary didn't get time to learn much. At lunch, Billy Marbles couldn't play Doogs at all. As any sensible person knows, a bum gives you balance, and you can't be school marble champ without balance. The footy team was useless. The netballers got depressed. During spelling, Mr. Wally's shorts suddenly sprang off their safety spins and went scurrying down his long hairy legs like rats out of a tree. The kids laughed, they cacked themselves, and they all went home with piles of homework so big they needed their dad's wheelbarrows to get it all home. After school, instead of doing his homework, Skeeter Anderson decided to do some detective work. He wrote it all out on a piece of paper. No one was talking about it all, embarrassed as they were, but it was pretty clear to Skeeter that 1. At least 169 bums are missing. 2. Scientific instruments show no alien interference. 3. Binoculars show no missing bots plugging up the hole in the ozone layer. So he figured someone must have them. Someone must have burgled them, sneaked into everyone's bedroom with a torch and a pair of salad tongs, and got away with the lot. But Skeeter was a clever kid, a bit of a scientist really, because, as any sensible person knows, you can't hide a town full of bums very easily, and in a town where barely anyone has a pair of buttocks to their name, a person getting about still wearing one was definitely suspicious. So Skeeter wired on a pair of running shoes and began to investigate. At the bakery, Hairy Hans was sweeping up, looking sad. "No one wants buns today, Skeet," said Hans. "Not that I can blame them. No donuts either. Nothing suspicious here." Skeeter went on to Mr. Rude, the butcher, who had a rump steak special sign in his greasy window. That seemed a bit dodgy, today of all days, so Skeeter sneaked a look in the cool room while the butcher was serving a customer. Nothing. Besides, Mr. Rude had been burgled, same as everyone else. Nothing at the general store or the petrol station. And Mrs. Huge from the pub looked like a meat pie with a bite taken out of it. He tried the tip. There was always something useful at the tip, but the price was always right. But no second-hand backsides here today. In the dunes, he saw Mick Misery sliding down the slopes, having a great time. Skeeter kept out of sight. Mick was the only kid in town enjoying not having something at the back of him, in the back of his shorts, and Skeeter didn't want to spoil his fun. Through the streets of Bugalugs, Skeeter Anderson ran. Dogs snapped at him, but missed by a margin. There was nothing suspicious at all, though the number missing must be about 400 or more by now, he figured. Down at the beach, windsurfers complained that their wetsuits were turning into sails, and girls in bikinis had to wear suspenders. The seagulls laughed cruelly. Skeeter looked at them hard and long, but they didn't look fat enough to be the culprits. Fishermen stood around looking miserable. They'd all been seasick today and had to come in early. As any good fisherman will tell you, bums equals balance. But someone on the jetty caught Skeeter's eye. A fisherman, big and gruff-looking, with tattoos on his arms and a belly under his singlet like a beer barrel, walked right past, and Skeeter's hair stood on end. Aha! Follow that bum. Skeeter followed all the way up the beach and down a sand track, which led to a big shed with a truck parked out the front. There was the smell of oil and stinky fish and rotten crays, but also a strange pink smell he couldn't quite name. The man slid the shed door open and went in. All the big black greasy blowflies that had been sticking to the door suddenly pounced on Skeeter, who was trying to hide behind the truck. Slowly, Skeeter crept forward until he reached the door and put his eye to a crack. What a sight! He turned and ran like fury. Constable Comer was as asleep as usual when Skeeter came busting into the police station, but he woke quickly. "Strike me pink," said the constable. "Someone's stolen me." "Everyone," said Skeeter. "Follow me." They pounded off to the shed, though not very quickly because Constable Comer kept losing his pants and handcuffs and just about everything else on the way. People noticed them. It wasn't often they saw a policeman running anywhere, so they followed. Soon the whole town was on their trail. It was getting dark when they got to the shed, Skeeter, Constable Comer, and the whole population of Bugalugs. There was a light on inside. Skeeter pulled the door open and everyone roared. There it was, a gigantic stockpile of human bums. Bottoms, backsides and buttocks reaching almost to the roof. 496 units, all still in good condition, though some in better shape than others. Blue Murphy! The fisherman sat down, looking ashamed. "Why do you need 496 citizens' bottoms, for goodness sake?" asked Constable Comer. "For bait," said Skeeter Anderson. The crowd growled. Constable Comer put the handcuffs on Blue Murphy and lost his pants yet again. "Righto, everyone can come inside and claim their own property." But the people of Bugalugs hummed and hard shuffled their feet. They got all embarrassed. "Someone turned the lights out," said Skeeter. And when the lights were out, everyone went mad. It was like a footy match in there. Hairy Hans liked the feel of a smooth pink one at the bottom of the pile. Skeeter's mum, who had a torch, saw one right up on high that was small and peachy, and when she climbed up, the pile began to quiver and shake. Billy Marbles snatched one for himself, and his sister Mavis took two, and then all those bottoms came crashing down on the crowd, clunking and bonking like 10 tons of overripe watermelons, shaking the ground, buckling the walls of the shed, sending the blowflies out to the sea in a panic, and when someone finally turned the lights on, the town nearly died laughing. I missed a page. Nearly died laughing. After that night, Bugalugs got back to normal. Well, almost normal. People look a bit strange because they'd all been too proud to take their own bottoms back. Fat people had skinny ones and bald people had hairy ones. People pretended to be happy with their new choices, but really they were miserable. It was uncomfortable, unhygienic and altogether unsavoury, like wearing someone else's false teeth. So next Saturday, Skeeter organised a swap meet in the town hall and everyone got their own back. Rock bottom swap valve meet at town hall. Swap value meet. Bring your own salad tongs. Saturday night. All except Skeeter's best mate, Mick Misery. Mick did a special deal. He bought Blue Murphys for 28 cents and 3 black marbles. It was too big for him by far, but it was as hard as a brick, and when his mum gave him a smack, and his mum gave up smacking him overnight. Everyone was grateful to Skeeter Anderson. They bought him a rump steak, buns and donuts, and they always thought of him as the kid who caught the Bugalugs Bum Thief. The end.